August 25, 1981, Sony unveiled a prototype of the company's first still video camera.
This is the latest in camera technology. It is called a Mavica. That stands for Magnetic Video Camera.
Contrary to what the name might suggest, this camera did not record videos. It stored pictures by producing a video signal similar to that of televisions at this time. The pictures were stored on magnetic floppy disks, and because of this method of storing them, they could be shown on televisions. We are now more than 43 years away from this moment, and something new is happening to cameras. Consumer cameras have been digital and of incredible quality for a while. In fact, cameras that are able to produce footage of cinematic quality are becoming cheaper, more easily available to consumers, and easier to use. The Sony FX3 is not the first example of such a camera, but it has some unique features that could explain why everyone is buying it. The FX3 was released at the beginning of 2021, and while at first it seemed like it was just a rehoused A7S III, people soon started loving it. It is currently one of the most searched for video cameras for creating professional cinematic looking videos, and on YouTube the camera cannot be avoided.
Sony FX3.
The Sony FX3.
Sony FX3.
Sony FX3.
In 2023, Time magazine added the camera to their list of best inventions of the year in the accessible filmmaking category, and reviews online also show a lot of praise for the camera. Some even say it has changed their lives. A couple months ago, I also got my hands on this camera. My Blackmagic Pocket 4K got hit by a laser at a festival, and I decided to replace it with the Sony FX3. Alright, so why is everyone buying this camera? Well, the first part of the answer is rather straightforward. It shoots incredible footage. The FX3 has a 35mm full frame sensor, it can shoot 4K 10-bit color up to 120 frames per second, and the FX3 offers 15 stops of dynamic range. What all these specifications actually mean is that it has a big sensor, can therefore use lots of beautiful lenses that capture a lot of light. It can capture a lot of detail and a lot of detail in between dark and bright parts of your image. Ultimately, it shoots incredible footage, which can also be seen by all these cinematic uploads to YouTube shot with this camera. Another incredible feature of this camera is that it can shoot in incredibly low light scenarios. According to Gareth Edwards, you can basically shoot in moonlight with this camera.
It shoots at 12,800 ISO, so you can film in nearly moonlight.
So that is the first part of the equation. However, there are other inexpensive cameras that also shoot beautiful cinematic looking footage, and these cameras also solve this first part of the equation, like the Pocket 4K for example. Well, the second part of the equation for why everyone is buying this camera is something the Pocket 4K does not have. It has to do with who this camera was designed for. Sony designed this camera with content creators in mind. Sony basically brought the quality of the higher end cameras in their cinema line, dumbed it down a slight bit, made it more convenient, put it into a smaller form factor, and created a camera for content creators. It might not have internal ND filters and the sensor isn't exactly the same as the FX6, but it does easily fit into your backpack or around your shoulder. This focus of the FX3 on content creators can also be seen on Sony's website.
One device that answers the needs of young creators who are looking for new ways to express their creative vision. Usability for small scale and one-person shooting. A compact, lightweight body that provides the performance and mobility to meet the growing demands of today's content creators.
So, the FX3's success can be attributed to it being an incredible camera and a camera that's super convenient and easy to use. Targeting content creators as your consumers offered Sony an additional powerful advantage. The FX3 essentially gets marketed for free as creators show it in their videos. On top of that, the content creation industry is expected to rapidly grow, which will drive even more sales for the camera. Now, with the popularity of the Sony FX3, it might surprise you that Canon still dominates the camera market with 3.3 million units sold in 2023, which makes for a 46.5% of market share. An explanation of these numbers would be that Canon has a greater diversity of products. However, Sony is actually ahead of Canon when it comes to the value of those sold cameras. Canon's higher number of camera bodies sold equated to 506.7 billion yen, while Sony sold fewer units for a sales value of 565 billion yen. Canon seems to be excelling when it comes to selling more affordable cameras, while the opposite is true for Sony. Alright, even though Time added the camera to their accessible filmmaking category, it still costs over 4,000 euros for the body alone here in Europe. So are we all poor losers according to Time? Well, if you compare it to most cameras used to shoot Hollywood films that are around $100,000, the FX3 at 4,400 euros could definitely be considered accessible. But does that mean that it's worth it for you? So I've had the camera for around 3 months now. I have used it for client shoots here in Amsterdam. I've used it to solo create an Instagram ad that reached over 1 million people. I used it to capture some beautiful sunsets here in Amsterdam, and I am now using it to shoot this YouTube video. Although it's the most expensive piece of filmmaking gear I've ever bought, I do think it was worth my money. And a big reason for that is that I'm in this filmmaking thing for the long term, and apart from YouTube, I can also use the camera for client shoots. However, there are definitely levels to this stuff, so here's what camera I'd recommend for you if you're on a different level in your filmmaking journey. If you're starting out with filmmaking, you want to explore filmmaking, you're not really sure what to get, don't buy anything and just start with your phone. If you want a dedicated camera that's slightly better than your phone, get an action camera or get the Osmo Pocket 3. If you really want nice looking footage that you can possibly color grade, get a camera that shoots 10-bit color. GH5 can do this, for example. You can get this camera for around 600 euros, probably even cheaper if you go look at second-hand ones. It's an old camera, so there's probably lots of second-hand ones you can find. And it's also quite a convenient camera to use. Osmo Pocket 3 also shoots 10-bit color, but you can't swap the lens on that camera. If you want even better quality, perhaps take a look at the Pocket 4K, but keep in mind it's not a great camera for run and gun stuff. It's quite inconvenient to work with. Now, there are lots of cameras that I haven't mentioned, like the A7S III, FX30, the Blackmagic 6K, or the Canon C70. I simply haven't used these, but I bet they are also great cameras from the things that I saw on YouTube. You can check out all the cameras I recommend in the description below, and as you probably would expect by now, the Sony FX3 is at the top.
Actually, I took some picture in Hawaii on the way here.
Yes.
I should show that.
Okay, this is Mr. Morita's personal album here of testing. All right, let's go ahead and show those pictures on the screen if we can.
As a picture?
Yes. Look at that. Now, there's some little breakup because of the television transmission, but the fact is it's a very clear. You certainly know where to go to test your product, Mr. Morita.
That's a nice place to take.
I thought you were to take pictures of Japanese yen or the industrial might of your country or something. The Japanese have certainly figured out the Americans. I'll say that for them.